there's been some confusion involving the FBI investigation into the allegations against Brett Kavanaugh. The White House was pretty clear in saying that they wanted to limit the scope of the investigation, but following an NBC report that really delved into how limited the investigation would be, Trump denied that he was trying to limit it at all. In fact, he disputed the NBC report, but the White House counsel's office provided the FBI with a list of witnesses they are permitted to interview about 2 of the 3 claims made against Brett Kavanaugh. Now that was the news as of this morning. So Julie Swetnick, who was the 3rd accuser, was not included on that list. Dianne Feinstein was fighting rather aggressively in order to obtain that list of people that the FBI was allowed to speak to based on what the White House said. And then all of a sudden, Trump is now changing his tune and he's saying that he will allow for the expansion of this FBI investigation. So this just recently broke. He said, I think the FBI should do what they have to do to get the answer. He also said, now with that being said, I'd like it to go quickly. And the reason I'd like it to go quickly, very simple, so simple, because it's unfair to Kavanaugh at this point. So no one is trying to change the 1-week time frame, but based on what we were learning as of this morning, it seemed as though the FBI was only allowed to talk to 4 individuals, and that is not enough. There are a bunch of other witnesses who could provide information to the FBI. Julie Swetnick should be someone who the FBI speaks to as well. Now it appears that that will likely happen given the pressure on the Trump administration.
Yeah, so 2 things here. First off, let's acknowledge the obvious. The investigation was limited in scope in the beginning. It is now apparently less limited, which is an admission that it was originally limited. You can't, if it was unlimited to begin with, a new policy would not be necessary. So that's a fact. And so the question as to how limited it was is a good question. There's some reports out that it was limited to just 4 people, which is a joke. And obviously that doesn't do enough. But there's one other thing that people are not considering though, when we talk about the scope of the FBI investigation and the timing of it. So they have a week. The question is, how much manpower do they have? I've seen that discussion almost nowhere, right? So if you have a week and you got 2 guys chasing it down, you'll get nothing. If you have 20 guys chasing it down, you might get something. If you got 200 guys chasing it down, a week might be plenty. So I don't know the answer to that question. It's one that I think should be asked, but no one's asking. And then we get to Swetnick, which is point 2 here. So she has super significant charges. If attempted rape wasn't horrific enough for you, she alleges gang rape involving Kavanaugh and his friend Mark Judge, that they were part of a group of guys who would spike people's drinks and then quote unquote train them. If you've never heard of that term, it is many men taking turns on one woman. I remember seeing that in pop culture and thinking, well, that it was a myth, that never really happened. And then I remember naively thinking, man, if it ever did happen, man, it's funny what people are into. No, idiot, no, they weren't into it. The way that it happens is that their drinks are spiked, etc. They're unconscious in some way. Of course. But if you've never done that type of thing, it wouldn't even occur to a decent person what in the world that would entail. But the reason I bring it up in this context is, if it's really as outrageous as Kavanaugh and Trump suggest, wouldn't you want the FBI investigating that to be able to disprove it and get an easy layup? My God, that would help your case so much. All you had to do, realistically for Kavanaugh, if the FBI says, Ramirez or Swetnick or anyone does not had problems with their stories in any way, shape, or form, they could easily come out and be like, that's it, we told you, right? So the fact that they don't want people looking into Swetnick, man, that's weird.
Well, there are 2 issues here. So of course, the number 1 issue that's front and center includes the allegations, the sexual assault allegations against Kavanaugh. But there are also issues in terms of his testimony, because he is being accused of lying about a number of things, including his drinking when he was in high school and college. So previously, the FBI was not allowed to talk to any of his former classmates who argue that he lied about his drinking habits. And I thought that that was fascinating. Look, Republicans have been basically pressured and forced into this investigation. They've been trying to prevent the investigation from happening, and I think that means something, because if you genuinely think that the person you're trying to confirm as a Supreme Court justice is innocent, and this is nothing more than a smear campaign that's being launched by the Democrats, you would want the investigation. And I understand wanting to limit the timing of the investigation, because they're very much concerned that, hey, if it takes too long, we might lose power in the Senate, and then we're going to deal with obstruction from Democrats when it comes to Supreme Court nominees. But in this case, why did they try to limit it to only 4 witnesses? Why did they have to get pressured and forced into the investigation, even after Democrats told them, all right, we're going to limit the timing of it to 1 week? They think he's guilty. That's my perception of it, because if you genuinely think that he's innocent, you wouldn't have to be forced the way that Republicans have been forced.
Yeah, but let me break it down to 2 different categories. I get why they want to limit it in scope in some respects. So what they want to say is, hey, I don't want you to go into perjury issues, because then Kavanaugh's in a lot of trouble. So as we've explained on a number of occasions, he perjured himself earlier in the judicial hearings on a couple of cases, including his handling of Charles Pickering when he was at the Bush White House, Emmanuel Miranda situation. So they're saying, let's not go back and relitigate that. But also, very importantly, Kavanaugh is clearly lying about how much he drank and the effects that had in college. And as we have said repeatedly, Sheldon Whitehouse pointed out, his descriptions of what he wrote in his yearbook meant are obvious lies. Everyone in the country knows that those are lies. So the Trump people are saying, don't look into those. I don't want to get into perjury. We just want to look into the sexual assault allegations. I understand their motivation, right? Mm-hmm. And so, okay, that's one thing. When you look into the sexual assault allegations, you cannot limit the scope there, I think. And again, so here, let me give you an extreme example to give you a sense of why I wouldn't want the scope limited if I was the one that was charged. So I'm gonna give a preposterous example here. If someone accused me of being a jockey, as in the guys who ride horses around for a living, I would say, no, that's outrageous, I've never done that. And if you wanna get into an investigation of that, and there are several different charges, and you wanna get into whether I ever rode a horse, okay, well, I can see how you'd be concerned. Maybe they twist that and say, hey, does that lead to, but I never got paid. You know, this is getting crazy enough as it is. But let me get to the extreme part so that it's crystal clear. If one of the 3 accusations is that I used to ride unicorns, I would say, please, please investigate that. Because whether I'm guilty or not guilty of whatever insane charge in this example, right? I know I didn't ride unicorns. I know they're gonna be able to disprove that pretty easily. So whether I'm correct or not on the rest of it, I would want them to look into the unicorn thing, because it would disprove the charges. So Kavanaugh, et cetera, should be like, look at Swetnick, look at Swetnick. I mean, the gang rape, are you insane? Are you insane? Look into her allegations, there's no way that's gonna hold, right? But they're like, no, don't.
And those are the most serious allegations. I mean, look, they're all horrible, don't get me wrong, but none of the allegations, with the exception of Julie Swetnick's, involved penetration, actual like physical penetration rape, right? And so why is it that that was the one accusation that, or one accuser that they did not want to have the FBI look into? Look, I like that they got pressured into expanding the FBI investigation. I like that for once, Democrats are doing the right thing and they are fighting aggressively. The fact that Dianne Feinstein was really raising the alarm, raising the alarm regarding that list that the White House gave to the FBI, I don't think we would have really known about it. We wouldn't be as aware of it. And so I think that the Democrats putting pressure on Senate Republicans and Trump's White House is really making an impact here. And by the way, for me, if he gets cleared, good. At least we know, hey, if he gets confirmed, he's not guilty of doing this, right? Based on what the FBI investigated and what they found or didn't find. But this investigation needs to happen to either clear his name or find out that he did it and has no place in the Supreme Court.
James Comey wrote an op-ed saying, here's what we know at the FBI. Little lies are usually an indication that there are bigger lies. And Kavanaugh told a lot of little lies. And so if the FBI is not allowed to investigate perjury and those little lies like ralphing because of drinking, not because of spicy fish or whatever he claimed, spicy food, and the Devil's Triangle is not a drinking game, etc. Right? I get it. They're not going to keep him off the Supreme Court for those lies, although perjury is perjury, and Kavanaugh wanted to impeach Bill Clinton based on perjury, just like that. But if it in fact does lead to bigger lies, that's the heart of the question. And if I'm an FBI agent, I come in thinking, well, everybody in the country knows you were lying about what you wrote in the yearbook. So now I'm curious to see what else you were lying about. Like what you see? Click the subscribe button below and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another video from the Young Turks.